Hi, I'm your host, Megalon Jones, and welcome back to another episode of The Sharp End of the Stick. Yep, we're still doing the Cold War. This time I'm playing as the Soviets. And it is October 1982, and I have been tasked with raising holy hell along the lines of communication running north south along the American defensive lines. In order to do that, I've been given parts of 4th Company. That includes the entirety of 2nd Platoon, a little bit of 1st Platoon, and the company's T-80 main battle tanks. I've got 30 minutes to accomplish my objective. This is a small map played in iron difficulty with WeGo turn structure. I don't get everything all at once. At first, I've got 2nd Platoon at the start line. I've got a little bit of 1st Platoon deployed already for eyes. And we are playing, as I said earlier, on a small map that is dominated by a ridge covered in trees. And that's going to be the dominant feature of the map. The other thing to pay attention to is that the Americans have their own hills on either side of the map. It sort of acts as a bookend, one north, one south. I've also been given a series of target reference points for my off-map 100-millimeter mortars, and there is a north-south road running, which is presumably what the Americans are going to use. The plan is pretty simple. I'm going to take the already in position squad from 1st Platoon, probe the right flank, shove the entirety of 2nd Platoon past the stream, dismount infantries, and destroy as much as I possibly can in a short amount of time. This whole mission is really unique in that I don't have to seize or defend any positions. I got to cause lots of damage, limit the amount of damage I take to my force, and then have them all on the exit point by the 30-minute mark. And as such, I gain points by causing damage, will lose points by losing my own forces. Imagine being a teenager and your dad's giving you the keys to the sports car and saying you gotta have it back in 30 minutes. You can do whatever you want with it, just no dents. I come into this mission with the idea of breaking it down into 3 parts. There's the break-in, the consolidation of whatever it is I've found, which in this case happens to be leg infantry being transported by 2-ton trucks, and then the getaway. So I'm going to take about 10 minutes each segment of that operational frame then to carry it out. We don't really have any type of intelligence as to what it is we're facing. And that has me a little bit spooked. They've given me T-80 tanks in as reinforcements coming at the 10-minute mark. I believe it's the 10-minute mark. And that to me indicates that we're facing some more, or eventually going to be facing some more top tier American hardware. So the M60A3s or even the Abrams tanks. The probe on the right runs into heavy resistance. At this point, I think there's a platoon of infantry on that hill, and my squad is quickly annihilated. The fighting here is right on point blank range, with all that infantry on my right flank possibly having tows, dragons, and of course they have LOC anti-tank weapons. I start to pull back the BMPs and they offer their own support. It isn't good enough to save any of my infantry in this probe. In fact, there's quite a lot of red on red action with the explosives, but it is enough to force the Americans to end up going to ground. Reinforcements arrive and we get an air defense unit, and the T-80s show up and I start putting them in position. For the tanks, my idea is overwatch, so they take up position along the ridge line and then something entirely unexpected happens. As best as I can make it, a platoon-sized unit of Americans kamikaze charging straight through my right flank, using LAWs, hand grenades, whatever they can, and they end up immobilizing one tank, destroying another one outright. But it isn't before long that the surviving tank, along with the immobilized tank, that his weapons still work, along with infantry screen, stops them dead cold. The whole thing has got me a bit spooked. I now know that I really cannot expect to have a secure flank, at least not on the right, and as such I'm going to have to start considering consolidating all that, getting people into more defensible positions, even though I'm in no real place to be defending. In fact, I should be attacking. Okay, we're about 1/3 through the mission, and I've called in artillery. That's the 100mm mortars on that right hill. I'm cleaning up whatever's left on my right flank as far as the American Suicide Squad, and trying to tidy things up a bit, try to make some spots. There are still infantry trying to flee off the map. I'm getting return fire from high velocity cannons, presumably coming from the right hill. I'm also starting to get sound effect cues of air power. So that's something I'm gonna have to watch out for. There's about a couple turns where nothing much happens, with the exception of tank fire, which zaps a BMP, and the artillery that I'm dropping on the right hill. I haven't made any spots as to the American armor where it is. Again, I have sound contacts that point to the right hill. As this is happening, the Americans are starting to bring in their own artillery into the battle. with the American fire missions starting to come in, I more or less just basically escape them and decide that I've just had enough here. I've lost one tank outright, BMP outright, and I'm gonna have to abandon another T-80 due to the damage caused by the American right flank attack. The American artillery doesn't cause me any casualties, but it forces me off the hill. I think now might be the time to start the evacuation. As it is, it looks like I've probably killed the better part of a company of infantry. I'm just hoping that when all the victory point calculations come up, I come out ahead. So we abandon the last T-80 and everyone trucks it out of the battlefield. The tanks are the last to leave. As a parting shot, the air power I'd heard earlier, which was helicopters, completely hosed down the hill on the right flank that I was positioned on. They destroy the immobilized T-80 and make a lot of noise, and it's kind of like a parting shot on their part. But I've completely avoided the American heavy-hitting artillery and air power, but we're about to find out if that's enough for me to win the mission. Okay, I had to drag out the Price is Right losing horn for that one. I count draws as losses. As it turns out, I killed about 3 times as many Americans as casualties I suffered, but it apparently wasn't enough. I wasn't aggressive enough. I should have picked one of those hills and really pounded it. And as we can see, I think a lot of the combat power for the American side comes in the 2 Abrams tanks that I never spotted directly but saw the effect of as they were sniping at me in the tree line. If I had managed to take one of those out, I'm willing to bet I would have gotten a victory. The platoon on the right hill is completely shattered. They're in broken and panic state. Lots of casualties amongst most of the squads. But as it turns out, that just wasn't enough. I had to cause more damage initially in that first break-in. I needed to take one flank or the other and hammer it into oblivion and then leave, while at the same time keeping losses to myself to a minimum. Well, I hope you had a good time, and I will be coming at you with more combat mission related content. Thanks.
Viewing completed. Computer ready. Firing tower ready for firing. Fire!
T-minus 60 seconds.
57, 56.
Here is the picture it took courage to make. It took tens of thousands of years to build our civilized world of today. Tens of thousands of years in which people fought for the right to seek happiness. We must make certain that future generations will continue to have this right. We cannot destroy this heritage. But the ambitions of a ruthless few may transform this earth into a lifeless wasteland.
Do you men believe that peaceful coexistence is possible in this world?
What about you, sir?
How about you? Can you believe in peaceful coexistence? You want to, but too many trouble spots are building world tension. It took place yesterday. It's happening today. It may happen tomorrow. The terror of a last war is constantly casting its ominous shadow over us. If, within a few hours, a nuclear bomb were to explode over our heads. It can happen tomorrow, so you must see The Last War.